Okay, so it has finally happened. I finally received my email from Spitfire Audio for the BBC Orchestra. So when you get it, you click on the link. It says to install the Spitfire Audio app. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go to, I have a Mac, so we're going to go to download for Mac. If you have Windows, obviously you're going to choose the Windows option. But we're going to go to download for Mac. And then we'll open it up. And then we drag this over to the applications folder. And let's open it up. Okay, so it's going to ask us to log in. I don't remember what my login credentials are, so I'm going to pause the video while we do this, and I'm going to log myself in. Okay, so I've logged in now, and this is just asking for the default save location, and that's fine for me. Actually, no. I've been installing I know it's probably a bad idea, but I install my libraries to the documents folder. I know I really should move it, but that's where I've been doing it, so that's what we're doing now. Okay. And this I'm going to keep as the default path this way. So the VST install path, this is where your DAW is going to look for these files. So if you move it, you'll have to actually point your DAW to those files later on. So I'm going to keep it in the default location and then hit finish. And once you get to that point, you've installed the Spitfire app. Now it's going to show you, after you log in, what products you have. So this is the Discover app. So there is the Discover Orchestra and then the plugin. So we're going to install both of those. So we'll hit install. And we'll hit OK. And we'll download. And I'll skip through this, and then when it's done, I'll come back and show you what's going on. Okay, so the first one is done, so I'm going to go back to my products. And you'll see that I have installed the BBC SO Discover. I need to still install the BBC SO plugin. So I'm just going to hit the install button and download. And we'll be back again when this is done. Okay, so the plugin is now installed, so we are good to go. We are now going to jump over into Logic. And what should happen is Logic should discover all of the new plugins and hopefully install them all. Well, it didn't look like that happened. So let's go through. And let's open new from template. Let's open up our template that I made in the last video. And let's see if we can figure this out. So I call it Symphony. So we go to input. And we drop down to AU instruments. And then here's Spitfire Audio. And then we're going to go to stereo. And here we go. This is the Spitfire Audio layout. So you'll see that each block is a different instrument. So in this case, we're looking for flute. So here's our piccolo, there's our flute. So we're going to hit flute. And you'll see that we do have two different articulations, long and staccatissimo. So let's see if we can make this work. You'll likely not be able to hear this because if I turn on my speakers, yeah, this isn't going to work very well. Let me just see if I can hear it. I'll plug in my headphones for a minute. And yep, I have. 'That. And sure enough, I do have some audio. So I'm using the QuickTime screen recording, which I don't believe will give me the option to record computer audio as well. So I had to configure a couple other things to make this work. But in the next video, I will have all of these assigned. So just to show you how I assign it again. So you'll see that there are two different articulations, like I mentioned before. So there's the long and there's the staccato. So all you do is you choose the one you want. So if I choose staccato, sure enough, it's staccato. I know you can't hear that, but it is. Trust me. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to go through and map all of these instruments. So the first one is just regular flute, which is going to be long, and then that's done. So now if I go to the flute staccato, and then I click on it here just so I can see. It's a little bit easier to see when you have so many plugins there, so many channels. So we'll go here, Spitfire Audio, BBC Symphony Orchestra, and then stereo again. I'm going to go back to flute, and this one is going to be staccato. So I'm going to go through that and do all of that for the all of the instruments. But actually, before we do that, so I know that the flute's the same. We'll go through. We'll do one of each. So we'll go to the brass. I'm pretty sure brass is going to be the same. The same articulations. Maybe not though. Where are my horns? There are my horns. So yeah, it looks like the brass are the same articulations. So in this case, we do that. And a horn staccato. And I did quickly look at the, so here's it's defaulting to strings. So you can see the strings, but we'll get to that in 1 second. Let me just finish up the horns. And then we'll go to violin and stereo. So here are violin ones, violin twos, violas, cello, basses, and then here's our low brass. And then percussion, there's tin percussion, regular percussion, harp, and celeste. So let's go violin one. This is going to be a long, so we'll keep that. That's fine. I don't have a sforzando. I wonder if spiccato is going to be more sforzando. Maybe. So yeah, I'll probably use the sforzando that I made to be my staccato. So we'll go there. Yeah, that works pretty well. So yeah, that will work. And then we'll go to here. This is the pizzicato. So violin one, pizzicato. And then tremolo. Violin one, tremolo. And we're done. So we did woodwind, we did a brass, and we did some violins. Inside of so let me just kind of give you kind of an example of, we'll jump to violin two, and I'll do violin two while I explain some other stuff. So violin twos, I don't know. Okay, so this is reverb, this is expression, this is dynamics. So all that's included in Discovery. So you can, that's pretty cool. All right, so over here, these are the different articulations. In the core and in the, I can't remember what the big one's called, but the other two versions of the Spitfire Orchestra, there are more articulations, and those articulations will live over here. There's also options to change microphone placements, and there are other options that are kind of like built in, I think. I haven't seen the other versions actually, But for example, when you play a repeated note, one of the options is that you can actually have that repeated note sound different. So it sounds even more realistic. So it's not the same repeated note. But that's why the other versions of the orchestra get bigger in terms of size. So yeah, that's it. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to map all of these and finish that up. And then I'm going to figure out a way to get some computer audio in here. So as I start recording all of these, you can actually hear the sounds as I'm recording. But that's going to take a little finagling on my end to get the audio to be where it should be. All right, so I was wrong. It turns out you can hear all of this stuff. So I thought what I would do is come back and do a little bit longer video. So what I did was while I was listening to the video that I recorded, and when I realized that I was able to hear the instruments, so that you would be able to hear the instruments, I thought, let's just do a quick demo. I had a hymn up on my keyboard already that I was working on other stuff with. So what I do is I just threw together just a quick orchestration, I guess, kind of. I just played the 4 parts and matched up instruments where I thought they should be. So to give you guys an example of what the full orchestra will sound like, this is, as you can see, my mix is completely flat. I have not done anything. All of the, I mean, every instrument is flat. So there's nothing, there's no mixing going on. There's nothing, this is just flat instrument sounds played in, and nothing fun happening with them. So just to give you a quick listen of the whole, and then I'll break down the winds, and we'll go and do individual instruments as well, if you're interested in that. So here's the full orchestra sound. And the quantizing was off on some notes, and so it made a couple things sound a little bit weird, and some entrances weren't where they should have been. But that's I literally threw this together in just a couple minutes. So, let me just speed this up a little bit because we don't need to hear the whole thing. So just to give you an example, we'll solo out just the winds. So this is flute, this is oboe, clarinet, and bassoon. Unfortunately, you don't get a bass clarinet in the Discover. There is in the core and whatever the full version is. I can't remember what the full version is called, but this is just there's also a piccolo in the Discover as well, which I didn't include. This is just flutes, clarinets, oboes, and bassoons. Let's start from the beginning. Then we'll switch to some brass. The brass is really nice. It's got, so there's trumpets, there's French horns, tenor trombone, bass trombone, which is a little unusual. I would expect maybe a bass clarinet and not a bass trombone, but, and there's also tuba. So I threw together a quick little timpani part, just, you know, stupid. Just, you know, to give you an idea what the timpani sounds like. And then strings, I have violin 1, violin 2, viola, cello, and bass for that. So here's just strings. So if you listen, there's kind of a delay as the note attacks. So one of the reasons that I do this, and I think this will fix it, and I'm not quite sure if it will. I haven't tried it yet. So if you remember when I went through and I did all of my my strings, for example, I put all of the articulations on each individual track. So now if I want to, if I go to here, this is the staccato, but if you listen, so here's the violin, the legato violin attack. There's a little delay getting into it. So when you're playing, there's this like, so I kind of smoothed it out, but what you can do, and we'll try this right now, see if it makes a difference. Let's just solo out the violin and the violin staccato, which is not really staccato. I forgot what they call it, but so we'll do just those two, and I'm going to record on this, and I'm actually going to record the moving parts to see if I can get a more precise attack, just to see how that works. So the cool thing about the Discover is it takes up so little resources. You can go through and I mean, literally have, this is a Mac Mini running 16 gigs of RAM. So just to give you an example, you know, I'm running all of these tracks. Let's see if that little trick works. So we'll start from the beginning, and I'll do a recording of this as well. We'll just do that much, and we'll see if we can blend that in a little bit. So if I pull that down just a little bit, and we could probably even do it better with an automation, but this might not work at all. So even just that much, hear the difference there? So especially with repeated notes, this will help a lot. So just to hear it one more time. So that delay is not as bad. Let's do it one more time. I'll mute the new track. See here, there's a little bit of a delay right at the attack, but if I unmute this, it'll speak right on the beat. So a little trick. That's why I do it this way. So you can have those, and they're easy to go through and hear all the different articulations rather quickly. So yeah, so the sounds are great. I'm real happy with the sounds. So just to give you an example, let me move over here with this. So here's the flute. Oop. We got stuff muted that shouldn't be muted. So let's unmute everything. So here's some flute. So in the Discover includes the three. For the most part, it's for the winds anyway, it's 3 instruments. So the downside to that is that when you're playing like multiple notes, that's actually 6 flutes. So what happens is the more you add, the less realistic it sounds, because now each instrument, each note is adding 3 more instruments. So it kind of, you know, balloons up rather quickly. So that's the flute. Oboe again is 3. The oboe sounds good. Clarinet. And the staccatos are great too, just to give you an idea what the staccatos sound like. Okay, we got some bassoon. Bassoon sounds great too. This whole thing is just, it sounds so good. Here's the staccato of bassoon. Oops, sorry. Did I not choose bassoon staccato? Maybe there is no staccato for bassoon. Hang on, let's take a look. Bassoon is over here. So yeah, it sounds really good. So let's get into some of the brass. Being a brass player myself, that's really what I was, where my ear goes is to brass. So horns. Horns sound really good. I like the horn sound a lot. And of course you've got your staccatos. And then we got some trumpets. And again, the trumpets are 3 instruments on each note. So, tenor trombone. And when you get into the core and the bigger one, some of the articulations you get are the more splatty sounds like you get down here, but you can get that splatty sound up here. Here you get a much warmer tone. No matter how hard you hit it, that's the downside to the Discover, is you don't have all of the colorations that you can get and all the different tones that you can get through brass instruments and strings and woodwinds as well. So, and then you got the bass trombone. And then, of course, the tuba. And I don't know, I don't remember what the tuba is, how many instruments. It might be 3 still. No, I think it's just 1. Yeah, so if you look at the instruments, see where it says, so here the trumpets are A3, that's 3 instruments. All right, so the trombones, A3, bass trombones is A2, so there's only 2 trombones, and tuba, there's only 1, so it's solo tuba. When you look at the strings, so there's violins, so there's all those 16 individual players, these violins blend together, so these 16 violins, violins 2 are 14, violas are 12, and cello, 10, bass, I'm sitting far away, I can't see, 8. Horns, I think, were 4. Yeah, horns are 4. Piccolo, I believe, is 1. It doesn't say, but I think it's 1. Flutes are an A3, so there's 3 of them, 3 oboes, 3 clarinets, and 3 bassoons. So it's pretty cool. Tune percussion I actually haven't played with yet, so let's do a quick tune percussion. Some like marimba and xylophone. So here's tubular bells. And then we get a little bit of marimba. And then some xylophone. And then, of course, the glockenspiel. So yeah, that's the full orchestra for the most part. I think I've played just about everything. There's, of course, tune percussion. So you did your timpani. We did some timpani before, which sounds good. I haven't tried any of this stuff. You get a gong, which is great. Harp and Celeste. I haven't played with the harp and Celeste yet. So let's try the Celeste first. So yeah, and keep in mind, guys, this is free. This, I mean, if you wait the 2 weeks, it's free. If it's not, if you don't want to wait the 2 weeks, $49. I'm happy with it. We're gonna start recording the Beethoven Symphony. Probably starting tomorrow. I think I'll start doing some parts. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, so I mean, like if you look at the CPU usage, I mean, we'll look at the CPU usage while we play. See what. You know, and I mean that's crazy. That's crazy. So, all right, guys, that is it for sure for this time. We'll be back and start recording, and we'll see how this Beethoven Symphony goes. See ya.